Great Gatsby is one of my favorite novels, but it's really difficult to adapt into a film. This video is going to come in two parts. The first part will focus on the common metaphorical interpretation about the American dream and the dangers of trying to recreate the past. The second part will focus on an alternate interpretation where Nick Carraway is a closeted gay man. Part 1. F. Scott Fitzgerald uses Nick Carraway as a passive narrator in order to emphasize the magnitude of Gatsby. After all, Gatsby can't call himself great. This literary device strengthens the metaphor about Gatsby and the American dream because it distances the reader from Gatsby as an individual human and instead focuses on the idea of him. If Gatsby was the narrator, his problems would seem much more human and mundane. The problem with creating a movie around a passive narrator is that now you have to convert all of his thoughts and judgments into scenes. So this either creates kind of weird scenes where Nick is sharing his judgments.
There was something about him. A sensitivity. He was like one of those machines that register earthquakes 10,000 miles away.
Or awful scenes like this where they're just using voiceover.
New York was haunted for me. That city.
I mean, the letters appearing on the screen must be the worst possible way to adapt it. It's literally just reading the book. And to end the film with the letters again, that was just definitely a bad choice. But part of the problem is that the prose just sounds so good that you want to include it in the film. And then we have this scene that looks visually very cool, and Leonardo DiCaprio is getting to do a great scene with some great dialogue, but instead of allowing Tobey Maguire's acting to tell the story here, we're just clobbered over the head with the voiceover telling us what to think.
There for many years, you see, it's a family tradition.
The way he spoke. No wonder people thought he was lying.
Voiceover is particularly bad because if you're just going to read the book aloud, you may as well just read the book. There's no transformation of media and no point to creating the film. Similarly, the metaphorical interpretation is weakened by having an actor. Again, no person can live up to this description of Gatsby. But when watching a film, we'll focus on the character as a human instead of as an idea. Finally, the book is so much more than the plot. There are beautiful passages like, "There must have been moments, even that afternoon, when Daisy tumbled short of his dreams. Not through her own fault, but because of the colossal vitality of his illusion. It had gone beyond her, beyond everything. He had thrown himself into it with a creative passion, adding to it all the time, decking it out with every bright feather that drifted his way. No amount of fire or freshness can challenge what a man will store up in his ghostly heart." Or, "His heart beat faster and faster as Daisy's white face came up to his own. He knew that when he kissed this girl and forever wed his unutterable visions to her perishable breath, his mind would never romp again like the mind of God." And there's not really a great way to adapt it. It's just beautiful prose. But a lot of the book is internal thoughts and judgments, which get less of a focus in the film because of its visual nature. The parties in particular get huge scenes in the film, even though they're a fairly small amount of the novel. Additionally, the novel is quite judgmental of the parties. But in the film, the parties look awesome, and I left the film wanting to go to the parties, not thinking there was some sort of awful moral problem. Part 2. The gay interpretation. As an alternative, we could use the interpretation where Nick Carraway is a closeted gay man who is infatuated with Gatsby. This interpretation allows us to change him from a passive narrator to an active narrator. Now, some of you may be wondering where this is coming from. So I'll just read a passage from the book where Nick hooks up with another guy. This passage takes place right after the apartment scene where Tom breaks Myrtle's nose. See if you can spot the euphemism in the elevator ride. Then Mr. McKee turned and continued on out the door. Taking my hat from the chandelier, I followed. "Come to lunch someday?" he suggested, as we groaned down in the elevator. "Where?" "Anywhere." "Keep your hands off the lever," snapped the elevator boy. "I beg your pardon," said Mr. McKee with dignity. "I didn't know I was touching it." "All right," I agreed. "I'll be glad to." ... I was standing beside his bed, and he was sitting up between the sheets, clad in his underwear with a great portfolio in his hands. Beauty and the Beast, Loneliness, Old Grocery Horse, Brooklyn Bridge. Then I was lying half asleep in the cold lower level of the Pennsylvania station, staring at the Morning Tribune and waiting for the 4 o'clock train. Are They Gay and The Sin Squad provide a much more detailed breakdown and analysis, but I want to focus on how this interpretation would adapt to film. This interpretation changes Nick from a passive character to an active character. Instead of just watching quietly from the side, Nick is very much involved. Instead of just randomly helping Gatsby meet Daisy, now Nick is trying to impress and be of service to his crush. He's both inspired and jealous of Gatsby's love for Daisy, and the film can focus on this dilemma. When we read the opening of the book and Nick declares himself one of the few honest people that I have ever known, we can take that as a clue that Nick actually has a secret. The film could explore Nick's obsession with morality and the struggle with his own sexuality. Now, when Daisy said she's heard rumors of Nick's engagement to a girl out west, we can question what happened and under the dubious circumstances under which he left. The whole film would build towards the tragic end where Gatsby's murdered and Nick loses not just a friend, but a lover. I think this interpretation would make for an amazing film, and since the novel entered the public domain in 2021, I hope we can see a director or studio fully utilize this idea.